I'm General Cohn, Commanding General of Fort Hood, 3 Corps. As I mentioned before, this has been a tragic incident, and our hearts and prayers go out to those who have been impacted here today. I've personally spoken with the President, and he has extended his condolences and offered his support to the Fort Hood and surrounding community. The investigation is ongoing, but preliminary reports indicate there was a single shooter that was shot multiple times at the scene. However, he was not killed as previously reported. He is currently in custody and in stable condition. I say again, the shooter is not dead, but in custody and in stable condition. This is a cooperative investigation, and state and federal law enforcement officials. Earlier, it was reported that one victim was killed, was a female civilian officer. We now know that the female officer is alive, just out of surgery and in stable condition. She is believed to be the first responder who shot the suspect. At this time, the number of victims killed remains 12, with 31 injured. At Fort Hood tonight, we're focusing on 3 areas. First and foremost, the care of the wounded. Second, security of this installation. This post is no longer locked down, as you can see, but we will continue to operate at a heightened level of security, as well as continue to investigate to ensure that no threats remain. Third, we will continue to focus on casualty assistance efforts, including casualty notification and grief counseling. I want to take a moment to praise the efforts of our first responders and all of the agencies who have come to support our soldiers and families in this critical time. And it is truly overwhelming, the offers of support that we have had at the national and local level in dealing with this situation. Tomorrow at Fort Hood, we will observe a day of mourning. Fort Hood and local schools will be open, and we'll move back to normalcy as soon as possible. At this point, I'll take your questions.
General, what can you tell us about the alleged shooter and what he motivated that?
I think there's been a lot reported on that. I can't really tell you much other than his name of the suspect we have in custody, and that is Hassan, Major Hassan.
Did he say anything? Did he open fire?
I have nothing to add about Major Hassan.
Where is he right now?
He is hospitalized, and I have had no personal background with him that I could speak of.
General, what about the others who were taken into custody briefly? What happened to them?
As I said, in this incident, when it immediately happened, there were some eyewitnesses that indicated that they saw some people exiting the scene, moving into 2 buildings. And again, what we took a long time to do is basically secure those buildings, question the individuals, and question over 100 people at the scene that lead us to believe right now that is a single shooter. And again, the key point I would make is that, with as many people wounded, counterintuitively, that is a concern, and that's why we've asked for assistance from federal agencies to make sure that we have this investigation right. There were initially 3 were held. All have been interviewed, and at this time we believe the evidence indicates it was a single shooter.
Can you describe what happened, how the shooter opened a fire, and what was happening?
The initial reports, again, are at this Soldier Readiness Center, where units from across this post, and one of the points I'd make is there are a lot of units involved in this. Normally we'd have entire units all from one organization, but there are many, because Thursday afternoon is a makeup time where people from all across the installation are there. So this touches a number of units, and that's going to complicate as we do grief counseling and as we help our soldiers and families through this. It's going to make it more of a challenge, and we'll be requesting additional help to deal with that.
Details about, yes, sir. Could you give us more details about the victims, or were they from the same unit?
No, they weren't, and as I say, they're from a number of units across Fort Hood that were going through this makeup readiness process in the afternoon. I will tell you that it is a very good thing, and again, I credit the first responders. There was a college graduation ceremony. We had about 138 of our great soldiers who are graduating from college in an auditorium some 50 meters away. And thanks to the quick reaction of several soldiers, they were able to close off the doors to that auditorium where there were some 600 people inside waiting on the college graduation for these these great soldiers.
And on the makeup of the people who were wounded. Statements made by Major Hassan about suicide bombings.
I don't have any. I will not discuss anything about Major Hassan.
The makeup of the people who were wounded, sir. The makeup of the people who were wounded. Were they all military?
Right. The preponderance of them are military. There are two civilians that are involved in this, but again, this is, I have to describe it as a very enclosed area where basically soldiers were waiting for dental treatment, medical treatment, etc. So it was a large waiting area, and that's why I think you get that high number of casualties, and largely military people all in this area.
Can you describe the journey? One room? Did he move from room to room to room to do this, or how did he?
There are still evidence coming in terms of how this all laid out, but my understanding at this point is there were two facilities right adjacent to one another where the shootings took place.
General, can you speak to the timeline when he opened fire, then when he was shot, and then when you were able to apprehend him?
We are reviewing that timeline, but it was in a very close sequence of events in terms of the response. As I say, otherwise, I think we'd have had significantly more casualties.
General, is it your understanding he had 2 handguns and did all this with 2 pistols?
But those are the initial reports from the scene, is that he had 2. One was a semi-automatic weapon, which might explain the rate of fire that he apparently attained.
Did he target people that he knew?
I would not say that's the case. There's no evidence to support that at this time. Again, this is sort of, given the number of disparate people from disparate units, one would kind of reject that hypothesis.
I was going to say, tell us about the woman who shot him. Tell us about her. She seems to be a hero in this.
Well, I'm sure all that will come out, but I want to be very careful about laying this out in terms of information. There's a lot of information out there, and I apologize for taking so long to get out here, but we wanted to make sure that we had what we had right.
What injuries does Hassan have, and why do you think he was dead earlier? What are his injuries?
There were a number of folks that were evacuated from the area. There was a confusion at the hospital, and a CID agent has been with him the entire time, and we were able to straighten that out here in the last hour or so. Yes.
The woman who shot the first responder, who did she work for, and what were the units who responded? Were they civilian?
Right. As you know, the police force here is a combination of Department of the Army, security, police, and military police. And there was a combination of both military policemen and Department of the Army civilian police who responded.
General, is the FBI on base, and are they investigating the prosecutor?
Yes, the FBI is on base, and again, we will bring in the expertise necessary to properly investigate this case.
Investigated as a possible terrorist act?
I couldn't rule that out, but I'm telling you that right now the evidence does not suggest that.
Sir,
yes.
Was he targeting individuals, or was it just random and he just chose that out of the blue?
I could not speculate on that. Yes, sir.
This woman who was the first responder, and he shot probably close to 50 people. What is your message to her tonight? And her quick thinking and her ability to kind of neutralize the suspect?
Well, I think that the on-the-scene reports indicate that really, God bless these soldiers and these great Department of the Army civilians. The quick reaction, people tell stories of soldiers ripping their uniforms apart and basically applying first aid. We put a great investment in soldiers' first aid in taking care of each other. I'm sure this could have been much worse. As horrible as this was, I think it could have been much worse.
The weapons that were used, were they military issue or the soldiers' personal weapons?
There's no indication that they were military weapons. Yes, I'm sorry.
He was informed that he was going to be deployed again, and he had manifested many times.
Yeah, I've said I can't really speak about Major Hassan.
Can he talk?
Yes.
Is it accurate that Major Hassan was temporarily evacuated and hospitalized as a victim? Is that what you're saying?
No, at all times the CID had custody of him throughout the hospitalization process.
Can he speak? What kind of condition is he in?
I don't want to reveal his condition, but again, I'm sure we'll have an update on that.
Is he speaking to investigators? Is he speaking to investigators?
He is not currently speaking to investigators.
Is he expected to survive?
I would say his death is not imminent.
General, did you say that there were soldiers that were ripping off their uniforms and treating the wounded as they were
Right. The problem that you had initially at this scene is that the shooter started, and until they could secure the scene in terms of trying to get people in and start the casualty evacuation, there was some tenuous moments in terms of trying to get in there. So it would make sense that the soldiers who were on the scene would provide first aid first, because many of them are trained as combat lifesavers.
So would the soldiers that were in this room, would they have been armed themselves, or is this a place where...
No, we would not. As a matter of practice, we do not carry weapons. This is our home. So we do have security guards that are here, the MPs and the Department of the Army Civilian Police. But soldiers on Fort Hood do not carry weapons. I will say that we are, as a matter of assurance to the local community, we are going to increase our security presence here in the coming days. But the fact is that soldiers do not carry weapons routinely unless they're at a training event, et cetera, or something of this nature. I'll take one more question.
What have you heard about how your soldiers react? And did they rush the shooter to knock him down before the police officer was able?
I've heard anecdotal evidence, but I'm not prepared to talk to that. But suffice it to say, there was a lot. I was personally on the scene shortly thereafter, and there was, as you would expect from the American soldier, did a tremendous job from what I saw. And we'll have more details in terms of this as I'm certain about what I'm talking about. Yes, sir. The last question.
I'm sorry, you just said it occurred to the two adjacent facilities. Are you talking about 2 rooms or 2 buildings?
No, there are 2 buildings. There's a large building, which is a Soldier Readiness Center, and then there are some smaller facilities that are adjacent to it, right by the entryway, 2 entryways really adjacent to each other.
Could you describe this community, sir? What is inside?
Thank you very much.